we had this like sort of little formula, right, that we've used, which is sort of this idea of it's strategy, right? You have to have a strategy. You can't just do things, plus diversification, right? So like you have to be spread out in the right ways, in smart ways. And then plus consistency equals stability. Right? But here's the deal. That's true. And that's kind of what we're trying to build towards, right? So the opposite's also true. Short-term thinking plus, not having any redundancies inside of your business, plus, jumping from one thing to the next, which I think, Bob, you call shiny object syndrome. At least I think I've heard you say that. That causes you to be incredibly vulnerable. And like when you do that, you're ripe for disruption. And so you mentioned this a little bit, Bob, already, but like talk a little bit more about that kind of shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, that's funny. I think there's a couple ways to interpret that. I mean, usually whenever I say that, I normally mean, you see something shiny and you run after it, and then you turn around and there's something shiny in a different direction and you run after it. And look, I think it's a human condition, right? This is not something that we just see with, e-commerce business owners or founders, but it's something we all wrestle with, right? And I think, there's a psychological part of it, right? Which is the new things exciting and interesting. And I think that, the neurons in our brain fire and release the right kind of hormones when we think about, when we see something and we see a potential, right? We kind of catch a vision for something of what could be, or some, a potential end result that we want for ourselves or for our business. So that kind of gets us excited. But then I think when the reality kicks in of like, what is it going to take to actually get there? I think that's where a lot of us drop off. And, look, I think it can be motivated by positive or negative situations. In a positive situation, something good's happening and that can cause us to maybe fixate on it, maybe in an unhealthy way, right? Kind of what we were talking about before, and stay on something maybe longer than we should. And I think in negative situations, it can create, when we're in an environment that's potentially fear-inducing, we're kind of running around looking for a solution, right, without really taking the time to think and plan, and really make a more informed and careful decision. And I think that we see this in e-commerce sort of manifested around, we talk about this sort of growth hacker type mindset, right? It's like, what's the latest new thing that's working? And whatever it was 4 or 5 years ago, hey, Facebook ads can get 5 to 10x return. Let's just pile money in that, or Instagram is like the next new thing. And really, there's no, to the point you were making earlier, right? There's no strategy there. Often there's no diversity because you're just running from one thing to the next. You're not really building anything. And then there's definitely no consistency. And so I think, with this idea, whether it's motivated by positive situation or maybe a negative situation or a challenging situation, I think it can really be potentially be very disruptive, right? Especially when you kind of hit some road bumps.
And I think some of those shiny objects, especially in the last several years, have been tools and platforms and certain marketing channels, and the newest marketing platform. Something that seems like it makes something super easy that used to be hard. Like again, like if something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take advantage of like huge leaps forward, because there are those and you should. But I think the point is be careful of being too opportunistic and riding this sort of roller coaster and looking for that silver bullet. We often talk to a lot of people and help advise them through kind of away from looking for the silver bullet, because there is none. I think that this search for it, especially recently, has been one of the biggest contributors to, hey, if you were really searching for that silver bullet right now, you may not have a plan or a strategy. You may be out because there aren't silver bullets.
Yeah, and I think like I'd actually love to hear Bob Hutchins' perspective on this, but I mean, we talk about it all the time. It's like you're going into battle without really any kind of game plan or any strategy at all, and it's very easy in the day-to-day excitement, stress, pressure of like running a business to just get caught up in the tactics of like, well, what are we going to try? What's working? What's not working? And I think that, we always say, like, if you step back, like, if you start thinking about, well, what is it that you want your brand to be? What is your kind of business model? Are you trying to be the best? What does that look like? What kind of messages? Who are your audience? Like all those questions, once you step back, really direct and inform the tools you use and the focus you put on things. And I think really without strategy, you're just kind of running around chasing your tail.
Silver bullet chasing, just a point on that, I think it boils down to two things. And there's a reason why silver bullets aren't working in this environment. Silver bullets have to do with two things: fast and cheap. That's what people are looking for in silver bullets. They're looking for fast results and something cheap that I don't have to pay a lot of money for. And that's always the wrong way to go in business. It's the wrong way to go in life. It goes against every other thing that we know about existence as human beings. So why do we think we would be exempt out of in business? Anything that is worthwhile, anything that is rewarding, anything that you want to be the best at, and you can just go across the board, look at the best athletes, look at the wealthiest business people, look at the best actors, the best, artists and musicians. Every one of them will say, there is no magic bullet and there's no way to do this fast and cheap. It takes time, it takes effort, and it ultimately takes strategy, a strategic way to do it. But the rewards are amazing. So, people can win in the short term, in the fast and the cheap, i.e. silver bullets, but long term it doesn't work, and in difficult times it doesn't work.
I literally have it on the wall in my office at our real office, but I think it's a quote from John Maxwell, or at least I heard him say it. It says anything worthwhile is uphill all the way. And that sounds maybe a little bit too harsh or hard or not very motivating, but I do think it speaks to the point of something worthwhile isn't necessarily easy. And if it was, then everyone would do it. And so it's really counterintuitive to be chasing tactics and hacks and silver bullets, because they're all inherently short-term. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be chasing, and we do this for us, our clients, for everybody. Like, we're trying to find the quick wins and the low-hanging fruit and all those things and always be more efficient. But there's a balance that has to still fit inside of a strategy. Like, why are you doing this? And and I was even thinking, if you take like just some constants like nature, right? If you want to, I know a bunch of people are planting vegetable gardens right now, but like, what's the quick and cheap and fast way to getting a vegetable out of the ground? Like, you have to plant a seed, then you have to water it, and you have to do all these things, and then eventually it bears fruit. And I think that's like a metaphor that is consistent in life and in business and everything. That doesn't mean you don't do things to like help it get there faster, but it is about planting seeds. And I think the reason that metaphor is important right now is that planting seeds right now is one of the best times to plant those seeds. And hopefully you've been planting seeds, but right now you need to do it inside of a strategy that makes sense for your specific business.